Good evening on this lovely July evening. I'm Ann Frohbieter, and you may not recognize me from the front because you may be more used to seeing me in the organ choir loft playing the organ with my back to the congregation. This evening, though, it's a special treat to have you joining me at the piano in my living room for an informal virtual program of show tunes and light classics. This evening's program opens in a burst of joy with a swirling waltz by composer Richard Rodgers in a piece he entitled Lover. The arrangement for solo piano is by Cy Walter, who was a brilliant lounge pianist who played in elegant New York City hotels in the mid-1940s through the 1960s, and whose musical artistry Richard Rodgers valued highly. Lover by Richard Rodgers. The Man I Love by George Gershwin has a beauty and depth that touches the soul. The arranger of this evening's solo piano version, Percy Granger, describes it in these words. He says, "The Man I Love is one of the great songs of all time, taking its place in immortality beside the finest love songs by other great composers through the century. He names Dowland and Schubert and Schumann, Brahms, Grieg, Tchaikovsky, Debussy, and others. Granger believes that Gershwin's genius was deeply rooted in the tradition of classic cosmopolitan music, and that much of his unique and subtle greatness lies in his humanistic universalism and in an effortless ability to reconcile contrasts that no one else had been able to reconcile before, and to reconcile opposing tendencies in his music. Well, whatever it is that makes Gershwin's music great, we're so grateful for his genius and so proud that he's ours. The Man I Love by George Gershwin. The next piece is by one of my favorite composers, Claude Debussy. It's Clair de Lune. It's probably one of Debussy's best known and best loved pieces for solo piano. The Clair de Lune translated means moonlight. It was composed by him in 1890 as the final movement of his suite Bergamesque. It wasn't published though until 1905. The music has a lovely, flowing, dreamy, impressionistic harmony and style, which Debussy introduced into French music of the late 19th, early 20th century. Clair de Lune. The next piece is also by Debussy, but of a very different character. And it's called the Gollywog's Cakewalk. It's the final movement of Debussy's charming six-movement suite entitled Children's Corner. Debussy based his images on novels that were written in the early 20th century by a British novelist named Florence Kate Upton. A gollywog was her name for a rag doll that played a role in her novels, and a cakewalk was the name for a special strutting kind of dance. So here's the Gollywog's Cakewalk by Debussy. The next piece is by a Finnish, from Finland, composer named Jan Sibelius, and he's well known for representing Finnish nationalism in his music, and had a preoccupation with Norse mythology and nature poetry, which gave him a special place in the development of Scandinavian music. Growing up, he was a violinist, and as an adult has written and wrote much great orchestral music, symphonies, and composed for them more than for piano. So he wrote fewer works for piano. This is one of my favorites of his. Still, the Romance in D-flat for solo piano has an excitement and a drama that can make it enticing to play and dramatically fulfilling. Romance by Sibelius. Before I begin this next piece, I want to thank Nathan Malik, one of our sound engineers at the temple, who has so generously given his time, and he's turning pages, and I think he can do anything. He's really been a help this afternoon. Thank you so much while we recorded this. My final piece is we're closing with one by Debussy also. This is one of his happiest inspirations, the title in French, The Isle of Joy, L'Isle Joyeuse. It was based on a 17th century painting by an artist named Watteau. It was entitled, in English translation, Embarkation for the Island of Cythera. The painting shows couples walking down a hillside to a body of water where they will embark for the island of Cythera, a Greek island, which is the mythical home of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. The island of love, Cythera, is the island of joy then that Debussy is portraying in this music. Listen for the pure joy and elation in it. Before I play it for you though, and before I leave you for the evening, before we part at the moment, I'm going to leave you with a quick personal postscript about this piece of music. I performed it in high school, my final year of high school, for a state piano competition in Indianapolis. And the judge of the piano competition, I discovered upon my arrival, was a very famous professor of piano from Indiana University School of Music, where I would be enrolling the following autumn. His name was Walter Robert. He was a brilliant performer and teacher of piano. And by the way, he was Jewish and had immigrated to the U.S. from Trieste following World War II. When it came time for me to perform Debussy's The Isle of Joy for him, the performance went well. He liked my playing and told me that not only had I done well in the competition, but that the performance I had just completed in the competition had also doubled as an audition to get to study with him at IU in the upcoming school year, and that I had just won entrance to study with him personally, if I was interested. It was a dream come true and one of the great miracles of my life. So this piece will always, The Isle of Joy, will always be a personal favorite of mine, and I still get a thrill each time I play it. So here we go.